born on March 26, 1930 in New York City, New York. Gregory was the son of Sam and Michelina Corso. Both of his parents were 16 when he was born. His mother, an Italian immigrant, moved back to Italy a year later, abandoning Corso as a child, and the Catholic Church took him in. His real father quickly remarried and left Gregory to fend for himself. Gregory had a rough childhood. He was a street child of Little Italy. He grew up in foster homes and orphanages. At the age of 11, his real father came back into his life to avoid being drafted into World War II. He repeatedly ran away from his father, and his father was eventually drafted into the war, leaving Gregory homeless. He was eventually sent to a boys' home. After being caught selling a stolen radio, he was sent to prison when he was 12 for several months. There he wrote in a biographical sketch for the New American Poetry. The other prisoners abused him terribly, so he was then sent to Bellevue Hospital for 3 months for observation. When Corso was 16, he returned to jail at Clinton State Prison, New York, for robbing a household finance office. This is where he began reading the classics, including Fyodor Dostoevsky, Stendhal, Percy Shelley, Thomas Chatterton, and Christopher Marlowe. When released in 1950, he worked as a laborer in New York City, a newspaper reporter in Los Angeles, and a sailor on a boat to Africa and South America. Gregory met Allen Ginsberg in New York City in a Greenwich Valley bar in 1950 while Corso was working on his first poems. This is when Ginsberg introduced Gregory to contemporary experimental work. Within a few years, Corso was writing in long, Whitman-esque lines similar to those Ginsberg has developed. In 1954, Corso moved to Boston, where his first published poems appeared in Harvard Advocate in 1954. And his play, In His Hung-Up Age, was performed by students at Harvard the following year. Corso also shaped his poems into a book he planned to call Who Am I? Who Am I? But the manuscript was stolen and there were no other copies. After the success of Ginsberg's poem Howl in 1957 and the publication of Kerouac's On the Road the same year, Corso became part of the traveling circus of beat poets, which usually comprised of himself, Ginsberg, and Peter Orlovsky. Some of Gregory's poems that he wrote and some that were performed traveling with Ginsberg and Orlovsky include The Mad Yak, The Last Night I Drove My Car, I Am 25, Gregory Corso, Gasoline, and Destiny.
In the late 1950s, the trio consisting of Orlovsky, Ginsberg, and Corso lived together in Paris in what came to be known as the Beat Hotel near St. Michael. For a time, they all slept in the same bed, but eventually Corso found his own room on the top floor, a triangle barely high enough to let him stand up, or wide enough to contain him sleeping. Heavy drug use in the 1960s and 70s meant that the poverty of his youth continued. When an interviewer inquired about the state of his finances in 1974, he revealed that when he needed money for drugs, he would just sell one of his poetry books. He is quoted saying, "I get about $200 a book, so a lot of my poems are in the universities and have never been published." But he added, "The goodies I remember in my head." One of Corso's more notable poems would be his poem Bomb. In this piece, he discusses that it is easy to hate the atomic or hydrogen bombs that were beginning to be produced during this time, and that we should try to love and accept them because they are reality and aren't going anywhere. This poem is written in the form of a mushroom cloud to further enhance the experience of the writing. This poem can be used as a marker of the beginning of the postmodernism movement that began shortly after the bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and notes the obsession the general public had with atomic and hydrogen bombs at the time. Corso was married 3 times in his life. His third marriage to his wife, Sally November, ended in divorce. He is survived by a second wife, Belle Carpenter, 3 daughters, 2 sons, a brother, 7 grandchildren, and a great-grandchild. He died January 17, 2001, in Robbinsdale, Minnesota, due to prostate cancer.
Created using Powtoon.